You should be able to use hand sanitizer. You should be able to use CARES Act money for that. Yeah. Yeah.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good afternoon. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the meetings held April 26th and May 5th?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Those minutes both carry. I didn't have anybody wishing to address the board, it looked like, so we'll move on to approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We have approved the agenda. On to the good news report.
Good evening. We have two good news reports tonight. And first of all, we're going to start with something that if there's anything that can generate a buzz and that our high school students have no trouble rallying around, it's a little friendly competition. You throw a competition out there and our kids respond. Recently, Washington High students and staff were encouraged to get a grip on the use of their technology and addiction possibly to their cell phones. How many of you have yours laying somewhere nearby? Probably each of you. The goal was to reduce the amount of time spent on their phone for 1 week by 20,000 minutes. Students and staff stepped up to that challenge, and here to tell us more about that is Travis Sieber. He's the lead counselor out at Washington High, along with at least one of his students, possibly others. So Travis, I'll invite you up.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for your leadership throughout this year. It's been certainly a challenging year, so I appreciate what you do for students and staff as we put a bow on this year. I'm the chair of the Washington Counseling Department, and like many other staff members, I left a meeting earlier this year that seemed to go nowhere as the discussion led to students and cell phone and use in the classroom, in the halls, and the conversation was, do we police it with more rules and regulations, or what do we do? Because it just seems like it's that problem that doesn't go away. And as we left the meeting, Principal Papke and I discussed what if we put a fun spin on something and made a challenge out of it. And we didn't know what to expect, so we decided to designate a week as the Screen Time Challenge, April 22nd through the 29th. And we reached out to the mayor's office. Mayor Ten Haken graciously partnered with us. He issued a challenge to the students and staff at Washington, and he sweetened the deal by offering breakfast pizza and a visit to the winning class. As we worked this around the school, we partnered with student council. Members of the student council had a connection with Shields, and we partnered with them, and they wanted to sponsor prizes. We worked with our AP Stats class to create formula sheets to award the greater percentage reduced per class and then the total number of minutes produced. So our AP Stats teacher was all over that, and he provided the framework for us. Once again, we didn't really know what to expect, and each day the student council would issue a daily challenge on the announcements, and we had Sibling Saturday, which was encouraged to go out, spend some time with your siblings doing non-technology things. We also recognize that technology is a part of us, and phones aren't all bad. And one of the days was promoting positive posting on social media. So the challenge was to write something positive in social media. We had Wellness Wednesday, which focused on a variety of health topics such as healthy eating, balance, exercise, things like that. And as a counselor, I think there is a direct correlation between teen and their number of sleep hours they get each night and each week, and cell phone use. So as we dug into some data, we did find some pretty disturbing facts about teens and sleep and cell phone use. And really, this isn't just a teen issue. This is a societal issue. This affects adults as well. So we rolled this out with the Mayor's Challenge, and we were really pleased to reach our goal up on the website. 55,604 minutes were reduced. And then we had individual winners from each grade. And we have one of our winners here that I will introduce a little bit, and she'll talk about what she did during that week. But we were really, really pleased with the participation. We had 67% of the student body opt in to participate. Out of 85 third period classes, 77 of those classes reduced their screen time minutes. 90.5% of classrooms reduced their minutes. The average student reduction was 22.3%. Our winning classroom was fundamentals of computers. They went down 86%. And then I will introduce Abby Mayer, who is a senior at Washington. She actually placed third place, but I think the numbers are noteworthy. On April 22nd, she recorded 237 minutes of average screen time. On April 29th, she recorded 5 minutes. And that is very, very commendable. And she got third place. So here is Abby, a senior who is off to Black Hills State and a future educator as well. So please welcome Abby.
Hi, I'm Abby Mayer, and I took part in the Screen Time Challenge. And some of the ways that I was trying to, reduce my screen time was I tried to spend more time with my family and my parents. I just kind of put away my phone. I would leave it in my car when I was going into a place, or I'd just leave it in my room when I was at home so that I wasn't constantly picking it up and even just opening it, because that counts. And I would practice the piano more, so I got my time in, which was something that doesn't always happen. And yeah, I would read my book as well. So I got into a couple good books during that time, and I finished them out. So yeah, that's kind of what I did to reduce my screen time.
And you survived. I mean, it's amazing. You're here in the flesh to prove that it can be done. So
I just think what a wonderful way, and I love the positive spin that you put on this, because it obviously worked to do it in that manner, and it showed the students and staff what could be done if we put our mind to it. And I hope other buildings in our district look at this challenge and look at this, because I just really think it is a very positive thing to maybe cut down the usage. I also want you to know at Washington that I've been thinking of you as a family. I know you had a loss in your building, and we've been thinking of you, and we want you to know that. So thank you.
well, yeah, awesome work. I think the high school age is, some people wait and get their phones when they get into their 9th grade year. And so, as well as everything else that comes with that high school challenge, you now have social media and you have phones, and kids aren't necessarily well equipped mentally yet to deal with some of those challenges. And so what a great way to give them ideas of ways that they can kind of self-regulate without feeling like they're missing out on something. Because if the group of people is all kind of abstaining a little bit more, then it's easier. If you see someone pick up your phone, you're more likely, or their phone, you're more likely to grab yours. And so I think that groupthink mentality is a really positive thing. And hopefully there are some kids who did some things for these 7 days that maybe they'll implement their own Wellness Wednesdays. And our sibling, I love the sibling Saturdays. We could all, the weather is nice, we could all use a little bit more family time and time spent with our siblings. And so even just some of those little key catchy things, hopefully some people will continue to maintain those ideas throughout the summer and beyond. So great job.
And I love that they got the AP stats, you said, or
Yeah.
the kids involved in the formulas and things like that. I mean, that shows the creativity of our school staff, and just taking something, as you said, Cynthia, and spinning it in a positive way, and also making it a learning experience in as many ways as possible.
Yeah,
so
very nice.
Kudos to Washington for a great idea that we hope is replicated many times over in the district in some way, shape, or form. So next up, we have the Sioux Falls Public Schools Education Foundation. They're wrapping up an exciting year, and Executive Director Allison Strock is going to be sharing some highlights, including a large gift to the foundation's endowment. So we welcome Allison.
Well, good evening, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to present tonight. It's my pleasure to kind of recap our 2020-2021 school year. As you know, the foundation has three main focus areas. The first is our Public School Proud Grant Program. The second is the First Time Teacher Grants. And then the third is the Student Success Fund. First, just to recap the school year as we're winding down, in August and September, we provided 68 $200 first-time teacher grants. So those are going to first-time, first-year teachers who are recent graduates of college. They're hired by the Sioux Falls School District, and they can use that $200 to buy bulletin board materials, classroom sets of books, organization materials, puzzles, games, whatever they need to get their classroom up and going. We also established the educator committee, so that includes some of our board members who are teachers and administrators, and then also other employees in the district who don't serve on our board. And the goal of that committee is really to help us share information about our grant program with staff, and then to get into buildings and to help generate some buzz about those programs, so that if teachers maybe come from a different district or they are one of those first-time teachers, they know about the opportunities that are available to them. In November, we partnered with Hy-Vee to provide 245 Thanksgiving meals to families, and then we ended the year with a major gift to our endowment. Jean and Connie Melans, in their will, left the Education Foundation $150,000. Their daughter, Terry, graduated from Washington High School in the mid-70s, and unfortunately, Terry passed away about 5 years ago, and then Jean and Connie both passed last year. And in their will, they had left this gift to the foundation. So they grew up in Yankton and moved to Sioux Falls, and that's where they raised their daughter. Jean worked for a telephone company for 32 years, and Connie worked at a trucking company as their office administrator. And their niece, Carol Johnson, we were able to visit a few times. We were hoping that she could join us at the meeting tonight. She lives in Sioux City, but her grandkids are in Texas, and they've been doing remote learning. And so she's been in Texas helping them, and it didn't work for her to join us tonight. But she said that Jean and Connie were very down-to-earth, humble people. Public education was always important to them, and so that's where this gift came from. It is the single largest gift to our endowment, and so we really wanted to celebrate them and to thank them and to thank Carol for this gift. The Education Foundation also funded the Community Resilience Model training. We sent 2 of our social workers to that in-service. They came back and trained the other social workers, and they're now implementing those best practices in the building. So that training is really to help our staff who are working with kids who have experienced severe trauma, which we know, just with the pandemic, what we're seeing in the classrooms, but then other things that have happened too. We're hopeful that, that training will have ripple effects, so that not only the social workers, but other staff members can work with students and use those best practices. We exceeded our fundraising goal for the year. We raised $236,000. We had an additional $24,000 that came in as in-kind donations. And then with the large gift from Jean and Connie, our endowment balance at the end of December was about $320,000. And right now, we are currently awarding 44 public school Proud Grants to 67 educators. We have a process in place for when the applications come in. They're screened by a group of administrators, an outside grants committee, and then the Sioux Falls School District tech team. And that's just to make sure that what teachers are requesting aligns with the district's strategic plan and their content areas. And then also when we're purchasing software and technology, we want to make sure that if we need to troubleshoot any of those issues, the tech team can support that. So 35 out of 37 schools will have public school Proud grant materials in them in the fall, and that includes Ben Rifle and Jefferson. We had teachers who knew that they were moving and they applied, so we're excited for those kids when they come into those new buildings that they'll have some really neat hands-on opportunities. We'll be awarding $108,000 in grant funds. And here are just some examples at the elementary level. Jane Addams got a pretty big grant for cardio drumming equipment. So when you see those ads on TV, when they're pounding on the drums and they're really sweaty, the kids will get to do that at Jane Addams next year. Every classroom at JFK will have calming kits. These will help students with self-regulation. When they need to take that brain break and just maybe calm down, the tools will be right in the classroom. and the goal is to have fewer office referrals for disruptive behavior. The music teacher at Rosa Parks got makey-makeys, so she can now turn everyday objects into coding software and programs, so kids will be able to play the piano on bananas. And then they're gonna do a collaborative art project where they will create art and then they'll put music to it. So that'll benefit about 700 kids. And then all of the gifted ed teachers submitted a grant to purchase Marvel-powered computers. And when I was at Eugene Field, I presented while the teacher was with his 5th grade students. And one of the girls in his class, she's like, Mr. Dixon, this isn't fair. We're gonna be in middle school. So can we get these at, can we have these next year? And she said, it's just not fair. My brother's gonna get to do it and I don't. So I'll let, her work that out with Mr. Dixon, but they seemed excited about that. At the middle school level, our largest grant is going to Whittier. They're getting $9,900 to purchase 4 percussion mallet stations. We awarded a similar grant a few years ago at Patrick Henry and Memorial, and they were so popular there that we're introducing them at Whittier next year. We'll have specialized art supplies for students at Patrick Henry who have emotional and behavioral disorders. Students at McGovern will be able to access more reading materials remotely because of this grant we're running through the library. And then Ben Rifle will open with a new podcasting studio. So last year we were funding podcasting equipment. This year it's podcasting equipment. At the high school level, we have a group of students in the RISE program at Lincoln who will be starting a smoothie business. So they will check in, they'll clock in, they'll prepare the smoothies, they'll run a cash register, they'll have a cleaning checklist, and they'll clock out. So hopefully we'll be teaching those skills that they can use when they go out to seek employment. We're funding a studio lighting program at Roosevelt. Every middle and high school will have aero garden seed kits, and they'll be using hydroponics to grow vegetation, herbs, and vegetables. And one of the classrooms, they've invited me to come when the kids make salads using the lettuce, the tomatoes, the onions that they've grown. And then out at CTE, they'll be working with, the cybersecurity kids will be working with video surveillance and what that means for personal use, and then businesses who are installing that. We still have $23,000 left to award before the end of the school year, so we'll be making some announcements this week and next week. We really feel like we're hitting a lot of different areas with music, art, library, the science, math, social studies, language arts. Social emotional learning has really bubbled to the surface, and we have a number of different grants in that category. And then we're also proud of the fact that students in special ed, gifted ed, and regular ed will benefit from these grants. Our grants are at the pre-K and early childhood level all the way up through our high schools who will benefit from these. Our last focus area is the Student Success Fund. This helps us address the equity gap at all of our buildings. Through this fund, we provide emergency food assistance, personal hygiene products, school supplies to kids who are moving 4 or 5 times a year, bus passes for high school kids who don't have reliable transportation. We installed the washer and dryer sets at 3 of our elementary buildings. And then we work very closely with the Department of Student Services and the social workers so that we can serve students in all buildings. They can work with the counselor or the social worker, and then the funds are loaded on their P cards. We also keep a supply closet where they can access those items. Looking ahead, we're excited to announce first-time teacher grants here in August and September again. The district will be celebrating their 150th anniversary, and we're excited to help partner on that milestone. The foundation will be providing breakfast to all of the staff at Ben Rifle and Jefferson as a way to welcome them into their buildings. One of our focus areas is growing the endowment, and that's really because of the gift that came in from Jean and Connie Mealans. And then I'm most excited about getting into classrooms next fall to see how the kids are using the grant-funded materials. We had to press pause on that this year because of COVID and social distancing, and teachers had to retool some of their assignments, but I am so excited to get back into our buildings in the fall to see how they're using this. So that's what we have going on at the Education Foundation, and thank you for your time.
Allison, just a wonderful presentation. Thank you to you and your board for all the work you've done to raise the monies to do these wonderful grants and the Success Fund and raising the endowment. It's just amazing to watch and see. It makes me really happy to see that, and you're able to help all these teachers and students in our buildings. So thank you very much. Moving on, no new conflicts of interest were presented today. So we'll move to approval of consent agenda items 9A through E. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That carries. On to the supplemental consent agenda. Item 10A, claims to Sanford Training Center. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That passes with one abstention from Board Member Ryder. On to 11A, teacher salary schedule.
Yeah, and as Mr. Veek comes up to do his presentation, I'll maybe just a little bit of context. You're used to seeing all of our salaries come on a yearly basis for approval by the board, and typically those are on consent. Tonight we have two that we have on for approval. We want to make sure that we're transparent and clear with the board with context as to why these are separated tonight. Todd's going to give you the details, but as we're all aware, our starting salary here in Sioux Falls has been much lower than we would like it to be. We want to continue to be competitive with that starting salary, and this year we're feeling that probably as much or more than we typically do. That's been a priority, I think, of the board. I know I noticed it as somebody new to the district very early on, as well as our Sioux Falls Education Association all being concerned about that starting salary. So tonight, we want to present an adjusted salary schedule that goes above what would normally be that adjusted salary schedule on consent, to look at the additional compensation that will be added, particularly on those base steps, as well as compensation across the entire schedule. And Mr. Veek has some good information to clarify what that looks like for our teachers as proposed to the board tonight. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Veek.
Thank you, Dr. Saban. I'll just start with a little background here. A little background on this. As part of the budget process, you'll remember the board approved a 3.15% salary increase for teachers, and that included movement on the steps of approximately 2%, and then the schedule would move approximately 1.15%. Starting salary would increase from $37,316 to $37,735, and that includes every year the board at its discretion can do an optional $750 increase for teachers starting on A1. We've been doing that for several years. That would have included that. And step A10, which is the top step of our schedule, except for the experience step, which you get after being in the business for 25 years, that would go from $60,308 to $61,000 for a $692 increase. Based on the 2017 and 2018 negotiations with SFEA, because the board had gone above and beyond the negotiated rate, and that's the state rate, what we get from the state aid formula. For the past 5 years, salary increases were scheduled to equal the state rate through FY28. But there's some issues, and Dr. Saban touched on those. One is a starting teacher salary. For that group there, it's talking about in the $37,000 range. And also salaries for speech language pathologists. So just to get to the regular teacher schedule, this is a comparison of our neighbors and some of the bigger districts in the state. These are starting salary comparisons. Brandon Valley at $48,271, our other biggest neighbor. Harrisburg's at $45,150. Del Rapids is at $39,515, and we were at $37,044 last year. So despite, so we are very low, and I think we're 30th from the bottom in starting salaries in the state. There's about 150 school districts. But despite having one of the lowest starting salaries in the state, we rank 6th in average teacher salary this year. So, or in FY20 last year, that's where the latest state data is available. Problem with our schedule isn't really what it looks like at the top of it. It's what it looks like for hiring new teachers, and we need to get quality teachers into the district. So both the administration, the school board, and SFVA realized that is an issue, so we sat down and tried to solve it. For the speech language pathologists, there's shortages all around, and we have declared that a shortage position in the school district. And currently we have 7.5 FTE we're trying to fill, and we have 0 applicants as of right now. So that kind of spells that out. So 2 big issues to solve. So we came to a mutual agreement with SFVA, and it's to continue the discretionary 0.75 salary enhancement language through FY24. So we've got it already through 22, so that adds 2 more years of that. And then we'll revert to the regular state age language or state rate language for FY25 through FY28, and that's subject to the condition below. If we don't do it, if we don't do the 0.75 over the 2-year period, averaged over the 2-year period, we will knock 2 years off the salary agreement, and we will negotiate it at the end of 26 for the FY27 year. Then what else we're gonna do is we're gonna increase the base starting salary to $41,000, up from $37,735. And again, that includes the additional $750 bonus, but it's up to $41,000, allows the district to raise starting salary at any time throughout FY28, independent of other contractual salary increases. So we have to do what we have to do, and if we can afford it, we can raise up the starting salary as well. And then it moves the speech language pathologists from the teacher salary schedule to the equivalent of the MA plus 24 lane of the psych schedule. So I know this is a little tough to see, but spreadsheets, we gotta love them, right? So this is what the schedule would have looked like had we done nothing. So that you can see the starting step 1, that for A1 is, and that's our teachers with 0 or 1 year of experience coming into the district. Almost 37,000 plus the 750, of course. The top is 61,000, and so that's what the schedule would look like without any adjustments. What we're proposing and before the board tonight is starting at 41,000. There is no 750 bonus then, so the 41,000 down to a new teacher coming in with 10 years of experience and a master's is at 51,134. We are not moving steps 5 through 10. Those aren't the problem of our schedule. The problem is what it looks like in the first 4 years. And this is the difference then. So if you came in on step 1, and let's say the schedule didn't move for the next 4 years, you know, in today's dollars, let's just put it, over the first 4 years of your career, you'd make an additional $13,395. And the further you work down the schedule or up it, the way you want to view it, it's less and less, because the biggest problem was at that 37,000 figure. And you can see even then on that row G, which is the 10 years plus a master's coming into the district, it's still almost $3,000 more over the first 4 steps. So you can see how that works there. And then what about the current teachers? So that's a valid question. It's a good one. So at the very top of our schedule, not including the experience step, the teachers make $61,000. Given our assumptions below, which is a 2.5%, you know, they're all assumptions, a 2.5% state aid increase. We do additional salary enhancement for the first 2 years, 23 and 24. The cost to move the old schedule is 2%. That's what it was this year. And because we've compacted the salary schedule from the bottom up, it's not going to cost as much to move teachers on the schedule. So we're estimating at 1.75. It might even be less than that, possibly, and we hope that, because then the schedule can move more. So given those assumptions, you can compare the A10 teacher, current teacher sitting on A10, and there's no more steps after A10 until you've been in the profession for 25 years. So The new schedule, they would earn over the next 22 through 28, they would earn $441,882. Under the current schedule, without any adjustment to the starting schedule and not the additional enhancement, they would earn $433. So the difference there is $8,424. So a little more than $1,000 a year is a benefit for the teachers on A10. So if you're a new teacher in the school district this year and you're moving to step A2 next year, because we didn't want to have new teachers come in and make more than you, so we adjusted steps 2 through 4. So what would that look like for that new teacher over the next 7 years? It would be an additional difference, and that's in the blue on the screen there. It'd be an additional $17,000 over the year for the teacher who's here for 1 year, and they had 0 or 1 year's experience when they came in. Assuming they got all their movement, they got their experience credits and whatnot, they'd make $17,000 more given these assumptions. So there's something on this for everybody, not just the new teacher coming in to the school district. As far as the speech language pathologists, we're gonna, the starting salary now is gonna be $55,250. It's more in line with the psychs, the OTs, and the PTs. It's approximately, the starting salary is approximately $16,000 above what it would have been without the agreement. The top salary without the experience step is about $11,000 more than it would have been. Again, the biggest problem is at the beginning of the schedule, not on step A10. So this is what the teacher's salary schedule will look like if you approve it tonight. We talked about it kind of a lot here already, but starting salary of $41,000, you're working your way up as you go across, and as you go down, the more experience you bring in, the more you make. So, and once again, steps 1 through 4, all rows have been increased. Steps 5 through 10 have not, but everybody will see the advantage of the extra 0.75 in the next 2 years, and plus it costs less to move the schedule. So once you're already here in place here, the faster the schedule moves, the better for you. The psych schedule is not new, but I would put it here first so you can see what it looks like. Most psychs are on that MA plus 48, maybe all are. But the MA plus 24 lane is what we decided to emulate for the speech, the SLPs. And so their schedule, which equals the psych MA plus 24 lane, will look like this. Start at 55, top out at 72, and then once you've been in the business for 25 years, you go to almost $80,000 in today's dollars. So our administrative recommendation is to acknowledge the report and approve the teacher, psychologist, and new speech language pathologist schedules, with the understanding that the administration will adjust the salary and benefit cost accordingly for the final approval of the FY22 budget in July. Stand by for questions.
Any questions or comments for Todd? I would just like to thank you and administration and SFEA and Tim for all the work to do this. I am hopeful this will help us to continue hiring great staff that we have in our district and open that door so that we are starting to approach being competitive for our beginning teachers here in our district, as well as move our experienced teachers in our district, because we do acknowledge that we know retaining and our teachers is important because it costs a lot of money, and we want that experience, and we think we have great teachers in our district, so we want to acknowledge that as well. And we know that the speech pathologist has been an issue. Obviously, we haven't had any applications for the 7.5 open positions, so hopefully this will move that needle as well. So thank you for the extra work on this. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I think if you think about the cost of getting a college education these days, and the people who are going to school to be teachers coming out owing potentially a lot of money, whatever we can do to try to help give them a salary that's going to help them live and not have to have second or third jobs is very helpful. So I think this is a great step in the right direction, and I look forward to kind of reassessing and seeing what we can do moving forward to, like you said, continue to be competitive. So thank you.
Seeing no more comments or questions, do I have a motion to acknowledge the report and approve the teacher, psychologist, and new speech language pathologist schedules?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That carries. Thank you.
Always hold your breath for a moment of anticipation why the screen does come up. And thank goodness, once again, it has. Tonight, I come before you to present some of the numbers for at least some of the anticipated numbers that we have for the high school and middle school student enrollments for the fall, this coming fall. And so this will be the 21-22 school year. And so the purpose of this report is really just to give the board an update as far as the impact of the high school and middle school enrollment numbers as we see that impacted by the boundary changes and the opening of the 2 new schools that we will have starting this fall. This falls under priority area number 4, community engagement, and really that strategic initiative to gather the feedback from our stakeholders, which would seem a little bit unique in the fact of giving an enrollment update with student or community engagement, but this truly goes back to the board's work that you had completed as far as having all the community input sessions and the committee that came together to guide that whole process of going through and setting the boundaries and being able to look at some of those numbers and the metrics that went along with that to ensure that some of our schools and the crowding or the overcrowding that was occurring in some of the schools really had that community face on it, and then you ultimately as a board making that decision as to where those boundaries would be. So this is really a result of that, and to just give you an update as to where those numbers fall at this point in time. And so the explanation on this is truly just after the completed extensive feedback from the community and the listening sessions that you as a board had and the committee had, and the introduction of those 2 new schools, Ben Rifle and Jefferson High School, Ben Rifle Middle School and Jefferson High School. These are the current enrollment numbers that we are projecting or looking at for the fall of 2021. These numbers are as of May 1st, when we pulled them just a few days ago. So if you look here at first of all, looking at the high school, and I'll give a little bit of a disclaimer here on the 2021 numbers, but if you look at the 21-22 projected numbers for this fall, that's current number of kids that have actually enrolled and have a schedule counted now towards those schools. And so if you really look at the 3 traditional high schools that we have there, Lincoln, Roosevelt, and Washington, that have been in existence, they have a true 9 through 12 student count, and the balance of those schools with Lincoln being just slightly the largest at 1890 and the smallest is which Roosevelt 1820. And obviously if you look across at the 2021, I'll put a little disclaimer on that 2741 number because I pulled these numbers from the start of this year and there still wasn't that balancing, so a lot of that is going to be a head count number instead of an FTE number, where the 1820 that they're currently at is a true student enrollment number with full schedules. And so the difference in there will look to be about 900. The true difference when we see this fall will be about 700 student difference, but that's quite a bit of an impact if you look at the crowding that we were having at Roosevelt and the solutions we were coming up with there to have about a 700 student difference. And then if you look at that balance between Lincoln and Roosevelt and Washington, so close as far as how those schools are with the numbers now, so ranging from about 70 student difference between the smallest high school and the largest of those 3. Jefferson, as stated, the 1469, that's truly a small senior class, so there's about 130 some, 140 give and take in that senior class, which is a much smaller senior class. So you figure the balance on that over the next year, how that's probably going to balance those 4 schools, so they're going to be very similar in nature, predicting somewhere about 100 student difference between those schools. So as you look at the numbers for the high school, the balance through there, my compliments to the board for looking at those boundaries and being able to balance that out as you went through that input session. The next group that we'll look at here is with the middle schools, and the middle schools going through there, Probably the greatest difference that you'll see in there is with Memorial Middle School, and it's going to be much more true numbers here because there's not the partial students where they may be coming out of the high school and going to a different program for part of the day. It's true numbers for the middle school much more so. So you're seeing about a 225 student difference in Memorial Middle School where the greatest concern was of crowding. And so those numbers did reduce significantly there. Each one of the schools was reduced in numbers as we brought on the brand new middle school, which if you see there, Ben Rifle Middle School is sitting about 970 students. So there was not a problem in filling that middle school at this point in time, and obviously we'll look at that in the future.
And I just want to point out to the public that might not be aware, we did not grandfather middle school. We did at high school, and that's why we were able to get Ben Rifle right up to.
Yep. And yeah, true. And if you look at that going back to the high school part of that, I'd mentioned that Jefferson with a small senior class, that's because we did, as the board went through and approved that, they did allow the high school seniors to be able to grandfather and remain at the school that they're at, which good choice, and many of the students did elect that option to be able to stay for their senior year at that school. That'll balance out in another year here as that option is not the same for the current junior, or the juniors to be next year. Where when you go to the middle school portion of that, there was no grandfathering on that, so the numbers are going to be much more true, and that'll be consistent moving forward. So it is good to see that with the numbers being reduced at Memorial Middle School and still being able to fill the other schools. The next question that a lot of times will come into play on this is open enrollments. And if you go to the high school, this is the first time in years that we've been able to open up Roosevelt High School to open enrollment. And if you see in there as the numbers, these are going to go back a couple of weeks because I'll pull them at roughly the start of each month. So this was before I pulled them for the month of May. And so Jefferson High School is sitting at that point in time with 180 open enrollments, so there was not a concern, and you can see it's fairly well balanced there. There was not a concern of individuals wanting to be at Jefferson, and they open enrolled, and I think a lot of it was when they saw the beautiful building and the teaching staff that was there. There was not that type of concern, so really was able to pull in some open enrollments there. Lincoln, Roosevelt, and Washington were still all able to, and you see that's fairly balanced now. With the number of open enrollments that we're being able to pull in, and total number of changes that way via open enrollment is about 626 for the high school. A couple of key points that I will point out to the board on that is this is the first time in a long time that we've had all schools be able to accept open enrollments, the high schools I'm referencing here. That does not mean that all open enrollments have been able to be approved. We still hit some caps in there, and there's several that are still sitting on a waiting list, but at least it was much more balanced in the fact of the open enrollments that we were able to approve, and every high school was able to accept in over 100 open enrollments. The only ones we truly have closed at this point in time right now is Washington High School and Lincoln High School 10th grade. There's been a buffer in there, just a large number of 10th graders at those two schools. And then you can see there that the new boundaries have really resulted in a reduction of the overcrowding in some of those, specifically Roosevelt, but not just Roosevelt. It obviously had an impact on Lincoln and Washington as well, with Lincoln coming down a few hundred students to a much more manageable number within there. You can see there on the in-district open enrollments, there was 508 that were in the district movements. So there's still that great opportunity for individuals to move to go to a different school depending on their preference. And then we had 118 out-of-district open enrollments that are into our high schools for a total of 626 at the high school level. The next part on there to look at is the middle school open enrollments. And you can see a pretty good balance there. There was only one school, Memorial, that we were not able to open up. You'll see 18 sixth graders. That truly was based on the state laws where if somebody has already been open enrolled from the elementary, there's a feeder school they'll go to, and that's where those 18 students, and that did apply to one other sibling that came into the district because we have to also accept by law any siblings. And so the 19 that were accepted at Memorial Middle School was due to a sibling process, and the other schools, though, were all able to accept open enrollments and to be able to go through in that process. So Memorial was the only one that we were not able to open that up quite at this point in time. But all other schools were able to accept open enrollment, and a pretty good balance of numbers as you went through and looked at those, with Patrick Henry being the largest one. At the bottom there's 159 in-district open enrollments that moved. And I'm sorry, I will flip it to the next slide. There's 159 open enrollments that happened within the district, and then there's 88 that were open enrolled from outside of the district. For the middle school, a total of 247. And the final piece on here, just with a summary, the additions of the new middle school and high school have resulted in a reduced and more balanced student numbers in our high schools, as you can see, and the reduced numbers in our middle schools, with some of our largest middle schools being able to pull down in numbers, and some of which even, most all of which, other than Memorial, being right at that 1,000 or under mark. We've been able to accept open enrollments in all schools with the exception of Memorial Middle School. And so the administrative recommendation would be acknowledge the 21-22 high school and middle school enrollment report. I'll stand by for any questions.
I just wanted to go back to the high school for Jefferson. So 1,469, and that does include the new tech students,
That is correct.
So do you know approximately how many new tech students? I mean, it's got to be right around 250, 300.
That'd be correct. It'd be 200, 250 to 300 mark. I believe it's edging right close to that 300 mark.
Okay.
It's slow to get back to that.
No, you're fine.
So probably a good portion of that senior class would be new tech.
Yep. A big part of that difference that you'll see between the Jefferson building and the other three would be that senior class with 138 in there. I mean, that's an easy 300 to 400 or 300 student at least difference.
Yeah, so in a, like you said, in a year or two, once we kind of move those current classes through that process, then we'll see them closer to that 17 to 1,800, similar to the others.
Yep.
So, and I think the great thing about having that number is also helps in the coursework that will be available, because we will have a higher number of students, meaning that there'll be lots of students that will be able to enroll in classes. And I know that was one of the concerns that people had was, well, what if I want to take this class and it's not offered? And because we do have a good chunk of students who will be going there, the classes that will be offered will have, more of a variety than if we have such a small number to try to,
In that first year with Jefferson High School, just knowing the numbers would be smaller, especially for that senior class, we still ran those AP courses, even though they're going to be smaller numbers. So that would cost a little bit more in the FTE, but the commitment the board made that we would still offer that full array of classes there. So many of those are still being offered, even though they're going to be reduced size in this first year, knowing that in year 2, 3, that they're going to pick up in their numbers. So those classes will still be offered, so students were not going to miss out on those type of courses. They will actually, and many of those have a higher or much lower teacher to student ratio, so through this first year anyway.
Good, thank you.
No, I don't have any questions, but listening to this report, it's sort of remarkable to me, because I think this process really began about 6 years ago. When we, probably even longer than that, when we realized how crowded our schools were getting. And to think of the point where we started and then having those community conversations that led us to the realization that we needed a new middle school, we needed a new high school, then through the bond vote and just getting that passed through and buildings built and boundary process. I mean, it's been a very long road to get to this point. But it's really exciting to see how well balanced our schools are now, and to know that we'll be serving our students, I think, in safer environments, hopefully more equitable environments as well, with course offerings and everything like that. So I just really appreciate all the work that a lot of us have put from the very beginning until where we are now. So it sort of feels like a culmination of a lot of years of work. So thank you.
Seeing no more questions or comments, do I have a motion to acknowledge the high school and middle school student enrollment update? So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That is acknowledged. I see the green suitcases, so I just want to remind everyone, early voting has started here at IPC. We have a full-time staff person working on that, so it's very easy. Just show up with your ID. And then on May 18th, you can go to any of the voting centers with your ID and vote as well. So,
And tune in Wednesday night, right?
yes, there's
The candidate forum.
Yes, candidate forum here Wednesday evening, put on by the Chamber and League of Women Voters. So tune into that to check out all the candidates. So Once again, you can vote for 2. There are 5 candidates running. Anything else for the good of the board? Seeing none, do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
I have a motion and second. All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. Thank you.